Hello, I'm here with Mr. Kyriakos Hadjittofis. He's my teacher. He's currently a guitar instructor at European University in Cyprus. He has been teaching there for the past 5.5 years. He's also teaching classical and electric guitar, theory, harmony, and history of music at KTH Music Research Limited, where he's the owner of the school. So we're going to start with the first question. How did you realize your musicality, and when did you start playing the guitar?
I started having my first thoughts about music from the time actually that I remember that I was, let's say, 5-6 years old, especially when the time I was in the first grade of elementary school. It was an emotion that I felt that music was attracting me. I felt it whenever I was in front of live musicians or whenever I heard music from TV or the radio. I felt this intense feeling of I should be closer to that thing. And I started thinking that I was a part of that. But it took a few years until my parents understood that I should have a guidance. So at the age of 11 actually I got my first music lessons. I used to live in a remote village where we didn't have that much access of music teachers. And if you go back to the beginning of the 80s where I was actually 11, it was tough to find in Cyprus, even in the capital, Nicosia, teachers that they studied abroad. So we had to find people that they knew what they knew from Cyprus. So I started music lessons at the age of 11. If you like, I can tell you how was the process, but you ask me whatever you want to ask.
Okay. Do you think that it was enough education back in 80s so it could help you start your studies as a musician?
If I was expecting it to be sufficient from the material I was getting from my teachers, definitely it wouldn't have been sufficient. Because as I told you before, we didn't have the teachers that they were educated that much. So anyway, I started classical guitar lessons, which everybody did classical guitar lessons. There was no lesson in modern or jazz or electric guitar. It was classical guitar, which it was a good thing. Then I started taking theory, piano, harmony, analysis of music, and I got a degree in harmony, counterpoint. I also did classical guitar, and but at the same time I was gathering material from everybody, because back in the 80s we had people that they started studying, let's say, to the United States, which it was my main focus. I wanted material from people that they came from America, that they studied blues, jazz, funk or whatever. So every summer I was like researching and expecting people to come from their studies, and believe me, I copied everything from those people. So combined to the material I had from my classical education from my teachers, I combined material from many people that they were coming from abroad. It was even tough for me to find books to study, so I was expecting somebody to go abroad to bring me some stuff. I remember myself coming to Nicosia once and trying to find a music shop, and I found a music shop. I remember the name of that shop, it was called Leon's. I think it still exists in Limassol. And they had like 10 books of different material, but there was no material. If you see Cyprus back in the 80s, it was miles behind that we are today. Even when I studied harmony, counterpoint, history of music and analysis of music, it was from the notes of Solon Michailidis, the actual notes, the actual copy, handwriting of Solon Michailidis, which I still have it. So I didn't have a harmony book. I had the notes of Solon Michailidis. I didn't have a counterpoint book. I had the notes of Solon Michailidis, his history notes, his analysis notes. So it was tough to find books, let alone finding audio material, finding records of classical music in Cyprus back then. For me, it was beyond imagination, or even having the money to buying them. Even if I found something, records were very expensive. And what I did, I was recording from the radio, anything on tapes, anything. There was a classical radio that played classical music. It was, I think, CYBC 2 or 3 channel. I used to listen to blues and jazz from BFPS, the Geia, because I used to live close to there. And because I was playing all day long with the radio, I even found stations from, because I was living in the Famagusta district, stations from Arab stations, and I noted the days and the times, and I was recording blues. That's where I heard my first blues, from B.B. King, Albert Collins, and all those giants, from the radio, through research. Actually, that's why I call my music school music research, because whatever I did in my life, it was mostly from researching. So when I was like 18, I was in a, if I can call it, a good level of musicianship, because I did all these things. And at age 18, when I joined the army, I was lucky enough to be a member of the military band. And by being a member of the military band, I was there for 2 years. I associated with some of the best musicians that we have right now in Cyprus. We played music every day. I learned also a wind instrument there. I was playing a phonium. And there I got the chance to explore even more, because I had the time to practice. I remember back in the army, I was practicing at least 8 hours a day, guitar only, let alone the other theory stuff. So my army duty was maybe one of the best times of my life, studying. So this is my story till the time I was 20. Then I worked for 5 years playing live music in clubs and nightclubs, 6 nights a week. And I was trying to persuade my parents to let me study abroad. It took 5 years to persuade them, so I went to my studies when I was 25. So by the time everybody was coming back at my age, I was going to my studies. So we stopped our interview nights until I started studying, before started studying abroad.
So where did you study, and what was your major?
I studied in New York. My undergraduate studies were focused, I was in Aaron Copland School of Music, which is at Queens College. It's one of the colleges of the City University of New York. I was fortunate enough to be at Aaron Copland School of Music because there was a great staff there, and the main focus was definitely classical music, but I was taking many courses out into jazz, like ensembles and stuff. But I got the chance at the same time to be a member, let's say, of the classical ensemble playing classical and of the jazz ensemble playing jazz. And at the same time, I got the opportunity to study with guitar teachers outside the school in New York, and getting a credit in the school. I used to be a student of Richard Bugas, which is one of the best guitarists in the whole world. I was a student of Kevin Allen. I used to be a student of classical guitar of William Matthews, and of Sir Erland Hanna, Jimmy Heath, Bruce Saylor, Sol Berkovitz, David Garnier, with whom I studied Schenkerian analysis. Anyway, I was fortunate to have lots of good professors like Professor Smultone, and many others. And then I went to Hunter College, where I did my graduate studies. There my main focus was composition. I studied composition there. And at the same time I was performing and playing in the New York area and other states. I had a jazz trio there playing bass mostly. And because of the Greek community there, we got a chance to perform extensively throughout the state, to the New York State and to neighboring states like Washington, Boston. We did 2 recordings there, 2 CDs. Anyway, it was quite an interesting time there.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you some more technical questions about the instrument and the practice of the instrument. So, how many hours or how often do you think that a performer must study?
Study? A performer? Okay, I get frequently this question. In my opinion, he should study. He should stop studying when he goes to bed. But even when you are in bed, you will envision and see dreams of your practicing, which is something very annoying. It happens to me many times. I go to bed and I practice in my head when I'm sleeping and I wake up tired. But of course we need to take care of our hands. Tendonitis is something you should always remember. But practicing on the instrument, it takes time, hours. But we shouldn't confuse that. We need to study theory, harmony, rhythmic skills and everything to become a better performer. It's not the hours on the instrument that makes you a better performer. It's the hours that it's like you're flying your aeroplane for many hours and thousands of hours. You need to practice music for many hours at any field, at any area. This will make you a better performer at the same time.
Okay. Which one is the most helpful technique to get or faster or better or make you feel more comfortable on the instrument?
In my case as a guitarist, I feel that the guitarist should play both fingerstyle and picking with a pick. Fingerstyle is essential because the things that you can play with fingerstyle, it's impossible to play it with a pick. Especially approaching styles of music like jazz and classical and everything, you need the fingerstyle. With the picking technique, you need to practice alternate picking, sweep picking, and any types of picking techniques. Picking technique and fingerstyle technique is something that you need to polish it throughout your life. If you leave it, it stays behind. So technique it should be a part of an everyday life of the musician. But always, as I said before, you need to take care of how much you practice, because the hands can take it up to a certain amount of hours. I had many times problems with my hands. I still have problems with my hands. So exaggeration, it might cause problems.
Do you create...
and always practice with a metronome. If you practice technique, picking, it's with a metronome. And when we say technique, as a guitarist, is not making you faster only. You need to practice your chords and being able to change chords fast. We play the most difficult instrument in the whole world in terms of chord harmony, especially if you get into jazz harmony. There are a few thousands of chord possibilities of playing chords. Drop 2, drop 3 voicings, any type of four-string combination, there are thousands of possibilities. And whatever you practice on the guitar, it should be times 12 keys. If you are playing in a single key and you think you're practicing, you're fooling yourself. You need to practice everything times 12 keys and not chromatically, via the circle of fourths and fifths. If you practice chromatically, that's not practice. It's like imitating the moves to the next fret. You need to practice times 12 keys in the circle of fourths, and the guitar is tuned in fourths, with the exception of the third and the second string. But it's a symmetric instrument. The guitarist should practice bass lines, should be able to play bass lines, should be able to walk on the bass. And in order to become a good bass line player, the only thing you need to do is buy the Bach chorals and study the bottom line. If somebody studies the Bach chorals and understands how Bach was treating his bass lines, you know how to play bass lines. If you don't study Bach and you are trying to learn bass lines, it will take ages.
Did you try to make your own techniques Because you thought that they are more understandable or much easier for the students?
As an instructor, I understood that every student is different, so I have to write my own techniques. And many times when I think of a new idea, the time that I will consume trying to find it from a book, it's much easier for me to create my own way, or even write it myself. I have lots of ideas and techniques that I write yearly for my students, and I keep it in records, because most of the books, don't forget, they have commercial reasons. You buy a book of 30 pages and you have 10 pages of essence, real value, and the next 20 pages are nothing, because everybody is thinking of the next book and the next book that he's going to write. And sometimes they consume pages and pages, and they could have said that in a line, and they consume pages of saying the same and the same thing. So I have to write my own techniques.
Which style of music do you prefer and why?
my motto, my philosophy is from Baroque to rock. So whatever music covers from the 1600s till the 1990s, because after that I don't want to discuss about that, I'm into that. So let's say roughly it's 390 years of music of interest. But I love blues, I love jazz. Funk music is essential for guitarists, because if you don't play funk music, you don't know what rhythm guitar is. If you don't study jazz guitar, you don't know your harmony. If you don't play classical, you don't know lots of stuff. So it's everything in there.
How many guitars do you have, and and what do you think it's the use of each one?
Okay. I have no idea how many guitars that I have. Last time I counted them, they were like 25. But I have a lot because of my students. But anyway, I have my classical guitars for classical music. I have my acoustic guitars for acoustic sounds, and various electric guitars for different styles. Let's say for harder rock, or for softer classic rock, or for blues, or I have a jazz guitar. Or but I don't think that you need that many guitars. One guitar can do. 2 guitars, you are okay. The thing is that musicians, they always like to explore new sounds. That's why we buy many guitars. But that's not an advice for everybody. Don't buy many guitars.
In your opinion, which is the key to success? Because I think that in Cyprus you are kind of a successful teacher, or...
I think it's practice, first of all, and loving your job, because by practice only you can become a good technician of the instrument, but you're not at the same time an artist, sort of say. So you need to practice a lot, you need to love what you do, and everything you do you need to go the extra mile. Let's say you are planning to practice for an hour, do it for an hour and 15 minutes. You are planning to practice for 2 hours, do it for 2.5 hours. You are planning to prepare material. Let's say when I'm preparing a material for one student or for one class, I always prepare more. So always go the extra mile, because these extra miles are going to get you ahead. Because at the same time, many people practice, many can become much better than you. Of course, it's not a competition, but if you want to survive, you need to be good.
Do you think you will be more successful in other countries? And which countries?
Nobody can know that, but of course Cyprus is much more difficult, because we live in 2016. We still don't have the Cypriot culture doesn't have the appreciation for the arts as it should. So this is what makes me feel worse. I feel that still in Cyprus we don't have the appreciation for the arts in general, and I'm not talking only about music. The music education in the schools, in the elementary and the secondary schools, is not as it should, because of the reason I said before. They don't appreciate the ministry, they don't appreciate music as they should. They don't feel that music is giving to the young kids education. They feel that music is pleasure. They feel that music it's a way of relaxing. Actually, that there was the reason I resigned from the teaching job that I got in the government. So their goal is not how it should be. Music is an art, and by doing this art, it makes you a better person. It makes you a more clever person, a more educated person. But if you see music only for pleasure and having fun, that's the wrong objective. So in that, with what I said, I feel many times that I was going to be better if I lived in another country, just for that. Not for a better career. Maybe if I was to be in another country, I wouldn't do what I'm doing here. But the only thing is that I want from our country is to start having music and the arts in general in a higher position in the education system.
Okay, so we are done. Thank you, Mr. Hadjittofis, for
Thank you, Andreas.
for making me this interview.